Welcome to Relationship Helpers. This is your host, Vincent Ketchy, and my lovely wife,
Laura.
Well, the last couple of episodes, we've been dealing with abuse. The first episode was with Athena Dean Holtz, and she talked about spiritual abuse that she received or had from her church experience. And our last episode was with Holly Ashley, and she spoke about domestic abuse or domestic violence. And so we're continuing this theme this week as we interview Paula Mosher Wallace, and she talks about her experiences with sexual abuse.
And in each of these episodes, we learn these people's backstories. We learn the kind of experiences they had, the kind of abuses they endured. But most importantly, we learn how they overcame these experiences. Today's interview with Paula Mosher Wallace is no exception. We learn about the sexual abuse that she endured, but we also learn how her life changed through the experience, but also how God changed her and how she's been able to reach so many people that need to hear that there is hope and there is recovery.
Right, and all of these women are in the church. It's not like any of these women are unchurched. They're not part of a church.
I know. Today's interview, it's kind of eye-opening. I'm really saddened to hear some of the experiences that she had at the hands of other church people that were speaking out of ignorance. People that are closed, that do not want to hear about her experience or have not wanted to hear about her experience.
They don't want to hear about it and they don't understand it and they do not realize the extent.
Well, and it's an uncomfortable topic. Either if you've experienced the abuse yourself, you want to live in that kind of blinder kind of like experience where you are trying to block off those things, or you've not experienced sexual abuse and you just don't want to go there. You don't want to have to hear about these things because it makes you feel less safe.
Right, or you're just uncomfortable. You like to stay in your comfort zone,
Exactly.
And that is outside of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the Bible study that you signed up for.
Right, and as Paula really adeptly lets us know, any Bible study you're going to be in, you're probably going to be face-to-face with a broken person, a person that has had this experience of sexual abuse happen to them.
Right, so even if you've not had these types of abuses, or maybe you're not aware of it, but even if you haven't had these types of abuses, I think listening to this, you'll kind of hopefully get a better understanding of those people in your church.
I know from listening to today's interview with Paula that I think anybody that would listen to this interview is going to feel like they see the world a little bit differently. They're going to really maybe be more in tune with the way people are behaving and see that, wow, these people may be behaving because they're so broken and they could have this kind of past.
Right. So this is the episode this week is with Paula Mosher Wallace. Next week, our episode will be with Christy Johnson, and she will talk more about verbal abuse and emotional abuse in relationships, among other things.
And also, I would like to encourage anybody that's listening to today's interview to one, take what Paula has to say to heart and read her book, but also we also have a resource. We did an interview. Well, we did a podcast episode a few months back on sexual harassment, and Paula really does a nice job of coming at it from the experience of a survivor. So check out our episode on why don't sexual harassment victims speak out.
Right. So here's the episode, here's the interview with Paula Mosher Wallace. Hello and welcome to Relationship Helpers. I am your host, Vincent Ketchy, and I'm excited to have with me today Paula Mosher Wallace. Paula is a speaker, writer, life coach, and co-host of the TV show Bloom Today. She is also the president and chairman of the board of Bloom in the Dark, a ministry that helps victims of pain and abuse. Thank you for being with us here today, Paula.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit more about your background.
As in, I was born on the mission field in South America, in the jungles of Peru.
Okay, all right. So not the typical childhood.
Yeah, sorry, a little bit different background. And that's where the abuse started in my life when I was 2 years old.
Hmm.
So I have lived a lifetime of all different types of brokenness and abuse. Because it started so young, I kind of became a perpetual victim. A perpetrator looking for somebody with a weakness or a limp noticed me and thought I was a really good target. So my experience in life socially starts from a third world country, not knowing what electricity or flushing toilets were till I was 7. The relationship side of things started with the understanding that there was nobody to be trusted, and there was no concept of healthy relationships or boundaries or security of any kind.
Yeah, so you started out with this abuse at a very early age and not really any safety.
No. And the abuse started with somebody I was fostered out to when my mom had to leave the country for medical reasons, and my dad had 5 kids there and didn't feel like he could take care of the younger ones, and 2 years old, and got fostered out to a woman in the church who is where the abuse started. It was pretty extreme, according to some witnesses who did see things at the time. And then I got raped when I was 5 years old by a man in the church, and you just get set up for some really messed up stuff when you start life out that way.
Yeah, so there's lots of abuse at a young age. You're kind of led into it and don't know any better. That's kind of what, not to say is not norm, but what's known to you, I guess.
It's normalized for the victim because you really believe you deserve any different. You don't believe that much different is possible. And if you see other people that don't seem to be going through it, you just think that you don't know the whole story. They must be experiencing this stuff too. It changes your viewpoint of the world when that's all you know, and when you feel like your family's abandoned you the way I did, and then the people who were supposed to be taking care of you were causing the abuse. It really twists things up when it comes to what your norm is, what your expectations are, and you believe you're the defective, broken, messed up person that doesn't deserve better.
Yeah, so you start having these false beliefs as a young child that you don't deserve a loving family. You don't deserve just acceptance.
Right. You don't deserve safety. You don't deserve protection. You don't deserve to be truly loved. You are a commodity for people to use or abuse or control. And that affects your choices throughout your life if you don't go back and actually deal with the original brokenness that created those beliefs and lies.
So you really have to work on it. You have to be very intentional about working on that brokenness.
Absolutely. And the people who don't, who just figure, well, it's not front of mind, I can live in denial, I can shove it down, I just need to escape from it. It's kind of like pretending you don't have cancer. Saying, I'm not going to believe that that's a problem, I'm going to ignore it, everything will be fine if I don't deal with it, will kill you. And for abuse victims, it will kill you because you get so depressed you commit suicide. It will kill you because you become a drug addict that will overdose. It will kill you because you marry an abuser who may kill you. It will actually physically kill you in many cases if you don't actually get help, be proactive about it, and deal with those lies.
So you continually put yourself in all these unsafe situations, whether it's mentally unsafe, physically unsafe, or just these unsafe places.
Absolutely. And even if you're in what would be healthy, normal places for most people, for you, it will be unsafe. If you don't change to get that health and stability, you will have victim tattooed on your forehead. Like a predator goes after the deer in the pack that's at the back and limping. When you're a childhood abuse victim, your body language, your attitudes, your responses are so broken that anybody looking for a victim to victimize, bully, whatever, they will notice that those broken things about you. and come after you. So it doesn't even matter if it's a safe place or a person that most people would consider safe. If they are bullying or victimizing in hiding, they will find a way to put you in a place where they can control or hurt you.
Mm-hmm. So they'll find you in supposedly a safe church or a safe house or a safe
anywhere, neighborhood, as an adult at business events, in network groups. It doesn't matter where you are. Predators are everywhere. Not that everyone's a predator. But
right. But they go everywhere.
Predators are everywhere, and so it makes it where you really don't have a safe place to be out and around people, because you're showing all the symptoms of brokenness. Like, somebody has a cold because they're coughing and sneezing and sniffling, right? So a victim, you can tell a victim by the way their eyes look, their body language, their paranoia when they look around and seem fearful. They're just so many really simple, subtle things. But I can look in a group. I went to an event with 3,000 women, and I could just look around and point out ones that I could recognize very easily. Yep, that's a victim, that's a victim, that's a victim. Because many times we end up in the totally dysfunctional, broken place, or we also like to choose sometimes to be the overachievers, perfectionistic. We fight to prove ourselves because of that brokenness.
Mm-hmm. So they put on this facade.
It is, but when that facade crumbles, then it's like me being 34 years old and suicidal and an absolute complete wreck, because I had never gotten help to really make a difference in the brokenness that got me there. And me being the business owner and entrepreneur and the successful person and money, and I mean, on paper, I had it all. And I was so broken, I couldn't keep going. And that's what motivated me to go, okay, I need help, or I'm going to destroy the people around me by the choices I'm going to make at this level of brokenness. I just can't do this anymore.
So it took you to in your 30s.
I was 34.
Okay, so it took to that long of time before you kind of hit the wall where you said, I've got to work on this. It's just, or I have to face this.
Right there. I mean, I knew before then I was broken, but it was not acceptable to get help. If you were just a good enough Christian, then you just shouldn't have a problem. I mean, today I had somebody tell me when I told them something they were doing was a major trauma trigger and they might want to rethink it. And the response was, well, you just need to get over it.
So it's always minimized.
It's minimized. You're blamed. Like, you just need to get over it, that other people's inappropriate behavior is not the problem. It's just you're overreacting, when the fact is there's actually many times when what they're doing is inappropriate, no matter who I am. Just not healthy, appropriate behavior. It's wrong, and I used to always think that I had to take it because it was my fault, because I must be defective, because predators will always tell you it's your fault.
So you're continually passive.
Oh, yeah. Well, you freeze. You end up with PTSD trauma triggers where you freeze and you're locked into a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old mindset, in some cases nonverbal, and you have literally no ability to fight back or to get away or to say no or to do anything. And that's not a deliberate choice. You know, if somebody has been to war and they hear a gunshot and they go into a psychotic PTSD episode, people get it. Okay, there's a gunshot. So you go to the person shooting the gun and say, hey, this guy's here at your place. It might be idea not to shoot guns while he's around, right? Where I say, hey, that behavior is triggering a major trauma, when I have been healthy enough to actually say something. And the response is, well, get over it, because I can shoot guns if I want to.
So they don't care.
No, there's no care. And I've even been told, well, I'm totally insensitive to that because that's never happened to me. And I'm like, I understand that. That is common. It hasn't happened to most people. But it has happened to 1 out of 6 boys have been sexually abused as children, and 1 out of 4 girls. And you're sitting there going, that means your behavior, if it's triggering me, is likely to be triggering at least 20 to 30% of all the people you're around. And that's not enough to make you rethink your actions, your statements, your behavior. That's really sad.
Right. That they just don't care, that they're insensitive to all these people that it's damaging.
Either that or it's intentional.
Oh, right.
There's always that possibility too.
So what would you say to our listener who is struggling with this? That is, this has been a secret for years. What would be your advice to them?
Well, the biggest thing is you're not alone. There are a lot of us. There are so many of us. And the hiding in silence is a normal protective mechanism. We're just trying to survive. So the first thing I would tell you, a simple thing to let you know you're not alone, is if you go to our website, bloominthedark.org/free-book, or just go to bloominthedark.org and look for the free book button. You can download a book that has 30 true stories of all different types of brokenness and abuse and how we actually found hope and healing. So where they're raw and real stories, we're not sugarcoating anything, but we're showing our path to find hope and healing, to let you know that you're not alone, that it isn't the end of the road, that you can come through it, you can get help. And then looking for a safe person that you can trust to go to. For some people, that's a counselor, especially one that specializes in abuse, if that's what the issue is. It may be a pastor, it may be a trusted mentor or friend. But even if the person you choose to tell reacts horribly and is inappropriate in their response because they don't understand, don't give up. Find somebody else that you can go to. There's Facebook groups where there's groups of us, hundreds and thousands of us, that are in a place where we can talk to other people who get it, who are not alone. On my website, there's 800 numbers. There's counseling centers for free. There are so many different tools and opportunities that you can get help with the addictions that come out of abuse. You can go to Celebrate Recovery, and that's a faith-based recovery program that is all around the country. You can reach out to shelters where they will help connect you to resources in the community. There's just so many different ways you can get help. And my statement to anybody is, don't let the damage somebody else did to you, the shame and the guilt they've heaped on you, stop you from reaching out and getting help.
So go and find that healthy support there.
Absolutely. And you need a lot of it. In my case, I needed most types of intervention. I was on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds for a time frame. I haven't been for 10 years, which I'm thrilled about. But I've been to multiple Christian counselors in different locations. I've been through Celebrate Recovery. I have been to spiritual intervention at beinghealth.com. Their ministry really helped with some of the spiritual impact of that damage. But I have refused to let the harm others have done to me stop me from what I call blooming in the dark. I might not reverse my past, but I can definitely use the fertilizer of my past to bloom.
Right. So you've been determined to become healthy, determined to get past all of this.
Yeah, I won't let anybody stop me. I won't let anybody interfere with my determination to heal and grow. But I also won't let anybody stop me from reaching out and helping others, because I received a lot of my healing through showing love and compassion to other broken little girls that need to know they're not alone.
So that love for them has really energized you.
Absolutely. So many things I could never have done for myself, whether it was standing up in a federal lawsuit in one instance in my history, or whether it has been outing a perpetrator or whatever it is. It's usually the only thing that's helped me do it has been the other little girls who've been hurt, the other women who've been damaged. Because if we don't stand up, then whoever it is that's doing the harm is free to continue doing that harm to other people.
So Christ has been using you as an advocate for these little girls.
Absolutely. And that brings purpose to all of the pain and damage and struggle I've been through. It helps me have a sense of value that I didn't have intrinsically growing up. It's recognizing that I can use my voice and I can make a difference. And through this ministry, someone had a testimony of not committing suicide from reading a story about suicide in our book. Somebody else quit being a stripper dancer because they read our book and realize the original broken issues that had made them choose that path, that they wanted to deal with and get help for those issues and not be in that lifestyle anymore. We've had people who have told their husbands and gotten help in their relationship because they admitted something they'd never told, which was damaging their marriage. There's so many ways that, with the statistics of how many have been damaged and abused, which are the same, by the way, inside and outside the church. When you sit and look around you in the pews on Sunday, count out 6 women or 6 men and knowing that one of them was sexually abused. Count out 4 women and go, at least every 4th one was sexually abused. By the time you add physical abuse, verbal, emotional, spiritual abuse, you're talking about well over 50% of the people sitting around you.
Right, it's rampant.
And it is rampant, and if somebody doesn't start speaking up, standing up, telling truth, shining light in that darkness, then we are allowing Satan and evil to continue doing that harm, not just to us, but to the people around us. So recognizing that and making a choice to be a part of the solution instead of putting your head in the sand and pretending that because you aren't actively facing it, that it's not happening all around you.
So it's really the church and the people of the church should be talking openly about it and should be bringing this to the light and should be attacking this, not only attacking this sin and attacking these spiritual forces that they're using these people to be predators, to continue this hurtful cycle of abuse. So your recommendation is to actually find support, and I know with my counseling, that's one thing that I do, especially with my couple. I will have them, number 1, find a partner, find somebody that's safe. Number 2, find a group. It can be a Bible study. If not a Bible study, Celebrate Recovery. I preach Celebrate Recovery. And then if not, and I tell them find as many as possible, just like what you were saying there. And people that what kind of keeps people from doing that?
Predators usually have to be stopped and held accountable. For ones who are doing direct illegal abuse, they need to go to jail. They need to go to court. They need to be held accountable, because otherwise there's no reason to stop. And when it comes to things that are damaging and hurtful, controlling, if the people around them will have an intervention, hold them accountable. This is not okay. Talking to your wife that way is not okay. Punching your child in the face is not okay. But in so many cases, to cope with our own fears, we sit there and go, oh, well, let me believe the good guy, the nice guy, the person that looks normal or seems to be a good person. Let me believe them. And when a child or a woman or a boy or man or somebody speaks out, let's not believe them. Let's shame them, because if I admit that what they've said is valid, then I have to face the fact that people that look decent around me might be yielding to evil and doing harm. And then I don't feel as safe. Let me believe the perpetrator, who's always going to lie about it, and not believe the victim, who, if I believe them, will make me feel less safe in my world. And so without even realizing it, people automatically choose the easy option, which is usually to victim blame and shame, and to let the perpetrator or the abuser off the hook and turn a blind eye to it. And right now in politics and in the Hollywood scene and whatever, it's a super hot topic, because people are coming out, and women are the ones that I keep running into that are shaming the victims. Why didn't they come out for 40 years? Why didn't they talk about it sooner? And I'm like, if you were one of them, you'd know why not. I just did an informal survey in one of the abuse groups I'm a part of, asking all of them, when did you come out and tell any kind of accountability person what had happened to you? How long from when it started until you went and told anybody? And this isn't politics. This isn't Hollywood. This is just normal people all over the country in an abuse group. And the average is 20 to 40 years between when the abuse started and when they actually admitted it to somebody. And some said they still haven't admitted it to anybody. And the only one person has said they admitted it immediately and got believed. 2 other people said they admitted it immediately and were not believed and didn't tell anybody again for decades because they were not believed when they first told. This is the norm, is to hide it, to have the shame, keep your mouth shut, to run away from it, to not admit it, definitely not go public. And the people, when they finally get to that place where they're healed enough and they are upset enough that they want to shed light so more people aren't getting hurt, they immediately get shamed and blamed and questioned and not believed so publicly that it tells every other victim, yep, I did the right thing in keeping my mouth shut. Which is a cultural norm that is just horrifying when it comes to changing these trends and stopping predators, making it harder for predators to abuse, especially children, but in general, to be honest about the culture that has us in a place where victimization is escalating due to the fact that we have all of the things like pornography and other things, the access escalating so much. And then people start feeling like it's all normal and it's not a big deal. And then they watch people get away with it. People in positions of power get away with it. College students on campuses get away with it. And now it's 3 out of 4 college girls graduating or in their college experience having been sexually assaulted at some level. It's a date rape culture now, to the point that these are intelligent girls and women. And then we wonder why marriage is having such a hard time. We wonder why relationships are so broken, why there's all these other damages that are symptoms of the abuse and the brokenness and the damage that usually is started very young.
So you're saying what needs to happen is all of this needs to be brought to the light, and we need to bolster up the victims, believe the victims, need to encourage the victims.
Absolutely, and help them understand they're not alone and that there is hope and healing available. I've been told, well, these many victims have come out and then recanted and said they were lying about what they told in the first place. And I'm like, yeah, what you don't understand is most of them are lying about saying they were lying.
Yes.
They just got
They're
shamed.
afraid.
They got shamed and attacked so much for coming forward that they'll do anything to stop it. And they're already hurt and damaged, and then they're getting attacked for trying to come forward.
They're being re-traumatized again.
Yeah, and usually pretty severely, and because of that, they end up running away and hiding and saying, I'd rather be shamed for lying about having come forward than to deal with the shame that's getting heaped on me for admitting what happened. And so even the places where, oh, well, they said it was a lie, I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand why they said it was a lie. And just the whole concept of it just makes my heart hurt, because I had those things done to me. I had treatment done to me. I know what it feels like to have come forward and have other people trying to blame you and shame you for it. And it's not okay. And a pastor not that long ago said to me, well, why can't you just talk about anything else? Why are you so out there and verbal about abuse and brokenness and awareness and all this stuff? And I was like, he was pastor of a very large church for 20 years and was telling this. And I'm like, after I unfroze and quit crying 2 hours later, I said, I realized because of him, because he's preached to a congregation full of broken people for 20 years and not once raised his voice about brokenness and abuse. The core damage in the hearts of so many of his parishioners, and he has never once mentioned it. And he wants to know why I won't shut up about it.
Right. He's not in tune. He doesn't know what's going on. Or is he a part of it?
Well, he told me I have no experience with that because it's never happened to me. Which, let's say that he's just clueless.
Right. Just ignorant.
He's just clueless. But where I'm trying to help him understand, instead of having a heart to learn and understand and learn more, his attitude is to dismiss and shut me down because it's uncomfortable and it is difficult to deal with. I'm going, okay, so a compassionate shepherd of the sheep, when made aware that he has a lot of hurting sheep in his congregation, should want to know more, not want to shut down the person speaking. So I do recommend all pastors read my book, by the way, because all of our stories are first person. So they have to put our shoes on and walk through it. And I was so thrilled when a pastor ran into me at the last American Association of Christian Counselors convention, who had read Bloom in the Dark from the last convention where he'd gotten it. He said, "Thank you so much. I read your book and it completely changed how I saw the people in my church."
So it really touched him, and so he started talking about that to his church, and it was very effective, it sounds like.
Yes, and he was looking for ways to implement more ways to help people, more ways to reach that part of his congregation that he had just been unaware of before, had not realized. And a different time, a pastor's wife said to me, "Well, that doesn't happen in my church, honey. For 35 years as a pastor's wife, I've never once had a girl or woman come to me with any of these stories."
So she's not been approachable.
Yeah, and my reaction was, that's not because it hasn't been happening to those girls and women in your church. It's because nobody trusted you enough to tell you, which is really, really sad.
Yes, yes. There's not been, in the church, there's not been a culture of acceptance or a culture of where some of these abused Christians feel welcome, feel able, or feel like they can actually talk about the truth.
Well, the issue is we want to pretend that being a Christian means bad things don't happen to you. And so once I found God, that fixed everything.
That Jesus takes care of everything. All those bad things go away, which is, yeah, that's not what he says.
That is not, as he says, troubles will come. Bad things will happen. Evil is very present in this world. And when we make it a culture, and somebody said, "Well, I don't want to give God a black eye by admitting to something." And I'm like, God's kind of God, and he can take whatever you want to throw at him. I'm not worried about that. But when we don't want to believe that evil happens to Christians, and then we don't want to believe that people who say they are Christians would ever do anything evil, and you combine those two, and it creates a culture that takes people like me, and if we come out, it can shun us and completely cut us out, or it can teach us that we are not allowed to have a voice. Somebody told me that I was glorifying Satan by admitting that I had been raped. That was a female Christian leader who was traveling around the world preaching. And she told me that to my face when I was 18 and actually admitted I had been raped at 5. And I just was like, oh my goodness. Like, how do I get help if I can't admit what happened to me?
Right. So she's really fearful of talking about the truth.
Right. And I really think that she was probably an abuse victim herself. In fact, a lot of abuse victims who have not gotten help, who've been shamed into silence, who have had denial be their primary coping mechanism, they are some of the worst at blaming and shaming victims because they don't want you to come out, because then it makes them have to face their own brokenness that they've been running away from.
It's too painful for them to hear you talk.
Right. So they will do anything to shut you down. And the other thing is, if they haven't gotten help, they're probably still believing that they are at fault. That the 5-year-old who got raped was the one who caused it.
That they're sinful.
Right, that they're sinful. And I believe that. For a lot of years, I believe that. But while I believe that, if I then see another victim who got raped at 5, if it's my fault, then it must be her fault too, right? So then if I'm not getting help for my own brokenness, then I am not being compassionate and helpful to the other broken little girl, because I'm blaming them just like I blame myself. And that's even more terrifying.
Right. So the anger is placed in the wrong direction. Instead of having righteous anger toward the predators, toward those who allowed this to happen or who did it, all that anger is turned inward or turned toward the victims.
Exactly. And it shows up in so many dysfunctional ways that actually just exacerbates the problem, makes it way worse. for themselves, for the people around them. And if you have somebody in leadership voicing these kinds of things and attitudes, then you're not just affecting one broken little girl. If you're in a position of leadership talking like this, you are going to devastate every broken little girl in your circle of influence. And the bigger
and
that
little boys too.
And little boys. And if it's a woman talking, the little boy hears it the same way. And if it's a man talking, the little girls hear it the same way. And so on our TV show, we actually have 25% men that have been interviewed and talking about their own brokenness. Because if women have a hard time talking about it, men are worse.
Right. Yes, I'll have, in my practice, I know I had a while there was men coming in their late 40s, 50s, and of course they were abused as children. They'd never told anyone.
Right. Because
40 years later, here it is.
The shame was that much worse. Because if it's socially unacceptable for a girl to have been sexually abused, it's even worse for a boy to have been sexually abused, because most of the time those boys are getting sexually abused by men. So then you've got the homosexual aspect to it that makes it even more shameful. When the truth is sin, and brokenness is brokenness, and being a victim or having been abused is what it is, and there shouldn't be shame put on the victim ever, no matter what type of abuse it is, no matter how it happened, no matter who did it. There should be love and acceptance, and there should be accountability for the perpetrator. There should be consequences. There should be people actually holding a standard that makes a perpetrator think twice before he goes after a victim.
Well, we're coming down here toward the end. This is kind of the final lap or speed round. What has been your biggest stumbling block in your relationship with God?
Well, he was my secret friend. Many times abuse victims have a secret friend when they're growing up through that. And God was my secret friend because humans had proven themselves totally unreliable and damaging. And so I would yell and scream at him about what was going on, but I was always in relationship with him. Does that make sense?
Yes. So through all the pain and all the abuse and all the bad relationships, God was right there with you.
He was right there. And the crazy thing is, whenever I'd go to him with God, why did you let this happen? You're God. You could have stopped this. His answer to me was always, it's part of your training. Not that he wanted that for me.
Right.
But he did allow it to happen, and it was part of my training. And what was crazy was realizing that it was 40 years to the day between when the abuse started and when Bloom in the Dark became a charity to fight back. 40 years of training. I didn't use those dates or numbers. I just realized it after the fact. But 40 years of training is a very biblical time frame for being trained in your calling, like Moses in the wilderness, or, there's a whole different list of 40 playing a role in that.
Right.
But I realized that if I would choose God above everything else, there was no damage done to me that he couldn't heal.
God was greater than everything.
There was nothing that he couldn't restore. There was no place that he couldn't take that brokenness and bring healing and beauty and joy and life out of it. And I actually think I have a much deeper appreciation of love and beauty and peace and the little things in life, because I know what it's like to not be able to be aware of any of the good things. So I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What is the best advice you have ever received?
To run to God with all my heart, asking him to provide the help and support and love I needed for restoration.
Who do you admire the most, other than a biblical figure?
That one's a tough question. I've thought about that one, and I'm like, man, it's difficult. But people like Joyce Myers that actually have come out with their story of abuse and trauma and put together curriculum to help other people through that kind of damage, to stand up on that level with that kind of honesty and transparency, I have an absolute deep respect.
So these people that have been brave enough to go out there and fight this fight.
And to be public about it and to be honest and transparent about it, I just think there need to be a million more of us doing that.
What is your favorite book?
My favorite book in the whole wide world is the Bible, and I know that's cheating.
Right.
The book that's probably had the most impact in my healing journey has been a book called The More Excellent Way. A More Excellent Way by Dr. Henry Wright. It goes into the spiritual aspects of finding healing, and I don't believe that that's the only answer, but I do believe it's a very important answer in the healing process, is to deal with the spiritual aspects of the damage.
Okay. So we're right here at the end, so share with our audience some parting wisdom and the best way to contact you.
Well, I consider every trauma trigger an opportunity to heal. That's my alarm system that lets me know that there's something broken, there's something wrong, and gives me the opportunity to run to God, my support team, my counselor, my pastor, whoever it is that's safe for me at the time, to run there for healing. So don't run from the pain, don't run from the diagnosis, don't run from the difficulty of facing brokenness. Pretend that it's cancer, and that the best way to survive and live and thrive is to fight back, to do something about it, to get help. And that's what I would recommend. The best way to get a hold of me is through bloominthedark.org. You can download the free book on the website. And if you go to the website, you can also find the TV show Bloom Today. And it's on 2 different networks seen in 150 countries, where you can go and listen to us share our stories, have our guests share their stories of all different types of brokenness and abuse, and how we found hope and healing in Christ.
Well, thank you for being with us here today, Paula.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us today on Relationship Helpers. It is our hope that you gained some valuable information. For the show notes and more information on today's topic, please visit www.relationshiphelpers.net. Again, that is www.relationshiphelpers.net. If you enjoyed our show, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. If you had questions or concerns about our show, please let us know about this as well by going to our website, www.relationshiphelpers.net. Thanks again and have a blessed week. Note that accuracy and authority in regards to the subject matter covered today is not a replacement for professional care. Neither the host, the clinicians, or the guests are rendering clinical or other professional advice. Seek professional help if you need it.